What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I'm feeling like 100 grand.
You are listening to Inspired Insider with your host, Dr. Jeremy Wise.
Dr. Jeremy Wise here, founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs and leaders. Today is no different. I have Telmo Silva, ClicData. You can check him out at ClicData.com, ClicData.com. And Telmo, before I formally introduce you, I always like to point out other episodes of the podcast people should check out. Since this is part of the top SaaS series, some interesting ones where I had the founder of Jotform, and very interesting, grew to tens of millions of users, and he just shared his journey of, it was interesting. We talked about pricing and some of the freemium models with it, and that was an interesting conversation. Another one was the founder of Doorloop. They grew really quickly. They actually raised, I think it was, I don't know, quote me on this. I think it was, they grew to over 200 people and raised millions of dollars very early on. And that was an interesting conversation as well. And Pipedrive was another one. At the time, they had around 10,000 customers. Now they think they have over 100,000 customers, and really talked about growing that company. So check out more on InspiredInsider.com. This episode is brought to you by Rise25. Rise25, we help businesses give to and connect to your dream relationships and partnerships. We do this in two ways. One, we're an easy button for a company to launch and run a podcast. We do the strategy, the accountability, and the full execution and production behind the scenes. Number two, we're an easy button for a company's gifting. So we make gifting and staying top of mind. It could be for clients, partners, prospects, staff. You give us a list of addresses and we do everything else. And we set up a campaign. So it's not like one gift. It's usually, a gift every 3 to 4 months for 4 years, right? So I love doing it. For me, the number one thing in my life is relationships. And I always look at ways to give to my best relationships. And I found no better way over the past decade to profile the people and companies I admire and send them sweet treats in the mail. So you can check it out at rise25.com or support@rise25.com. You can email us there. And by the way, today's episode is part of the sponsored series brought to you by ClicData. I'm excited to introduce Telmo Silva, CEO and founder of ClicData. And ClicData is a modern data platform made for data people. And what you can do with it is you can connect data from everywhere. They have over 500 plus intelligent database storage and API connectors, and you're able to connect to anything. And he brings 25 plus years of experience in technology and business. He was former VP of services and global IT manager at a top 10 pharmaceutical company. And he saw how complex business intelligence tools were, and they often failed to deliver the long-term value. And this sparked the creation, the idea behind ClicData. So Telmo, thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me. This is great. Thank you.
I'm going to share my screen. So if you're listening to the audio, there is a video portion, but just tell us about ClicData and what you do.
So I'm the CEO and founder of ClicData. We created ClicData about 2008 to exactly solve that problem. My experience was that, we would spend a lot of time implementing $1 million systems with consulting companies and kind of implementing data warehouses, data lakes, et cetera, just to arrive at the boardroom or at the meeting and everybody pulls out their Excel. And I thought there's something here that's not clicking, right? And reporting.
What were you trying to do with connecting the data at the time? For the pharmaceutical
at the time, we were not actually doing any specific work. We were working on very specific projects with customers. Mainly, we're working with pharmaceutical companies, trying to sift through all their data and trying to make sense of it. So I was working more on the analytics side, but that work kind of led me to think, well, these guys can do it because they have a lot of resources, to both human and financial, to put in place these incredible systems and these data warehouses and all these equipment. But what happens to the medium, small size business? Is that how they're going to run their business? Is with Excel or some other kind of low level analytical tool. And that's kind of what sparked really. That's kind of thing. How can I democratize this and say everybody could have, an end-to-end business intelligence solution? And that was the beginning of it. It evolved into much more than just business intelligence. We then start seeing all the use cases that people start doing with ClicData, and that kind of motivated us to even push it further and add more features and so forth. Today, it is quite different than the initial vision of just being a cloud-based BI platform.
Talk about, and you don't have to name names, but that initial, you have to get initial traction in the market. You have to get a first, second, third customer. How did you get your first few customers?
Interesting enough, like 99 at the time, 100% of our business was inbound. It's funny that you talk about Jotform and Pipedrive as well, both great platforms which we connect to as well. But I kind of took the model from them. I don't know if they came before or after me, but around that time, Dropbox was one model that I kind of followed very closely. And I love the freemium model. That was something that for me was very interesting because it allowed me to get exposure and also at the same time test the scalability and the capacity of our systems with a lot of free users, and while at the same time not having that guilt of saying, "Oh, I'm taking money from these guys," and the system is broken or something like that. So the first 2 years that we launched, we had a freemium model which basically grew to 35,000 accounts in about 18 months. And that was able to give us the experience on how to deal with so many accounts across the world because data sovereignty and all these other complexities that go along with it, and the scalability of the everything from the dashboards to the capacity to connect to all these different systems. That allowed us to really put it through the tests. So that freemium model really helped our inbound, and every single account we got for the first 5 years was 100% inbound. In fact, today we still don't have any outbound BDRs or any outbound sales model per se. We do reach out to everybody that starts the trial with us today, and the freemium model is long gone, unfortunately, because it
Well, I
was
mean,
just
it costs real dollars to do that. And that's what I talked to, the founder of Jotform about is like, you have real costs, right? And
absolutely.
behind it. And they grew to like, I think over 25 million users, but we talked early on, how do you transition those free people to the
Paying.
paid? But I mean, even getting 35,000 early on is a lot. How did you get that inbound? Like, what were you doing?
We're absolutely, the website went earlier on. In fact, at the beginning, we were called ClicPharma because we were doing data just for pharmaceutical. And we changed the name in
Mm.
2010.
So you had like a
Uh,
small niche. I mean, it's not small, but it is a small world in the niche. And so
Absolutely.
they spread it
Yeah, yeah.
around.
Absolutely. Well, I do think people are still looking and continue to search for that capability of running their business and looking at their KPIs in a better way, right? And I don't think the larger platforms, whether it's Power BIs and other things, have solved it. It's still too complex for those companies to do it, and that's why I think we're getting these organic inbound is because people are still searching for that perfect solution, and they're hitting us. Now, we don't have the marketing dollars that other companies do, but through the freemium and through just the organic, we're getting enough inbound to that. At the beginning, I was actually quite surprised how many companies start reaching us organically. But more surprising to me was the fact that some of these companies were well-known large corporate, or at least affiliates or departments of large corporate companies, that I thought, okay, I am sure they have every single BI platform in the market out there, and yet they're still not satisfied, or at least a group of people are not satisfied. So what is it about it? So that allowed us to explore. So we took different customers, some people from legal, a lot of medical offices, which have like already a staff of 5, 6 people to manage. They have 2 or 3 systems to connect data to. Maybe we are hitting a few marketing agencies, very niche ones that are, have two or three clients that need to support with data, and that grew ultimately into larger and larger. And as we got to be well known, larger companies came to start looking at what we do.
I know that you help various industries, like you mentioned, hospitals, education, retail. Do you just talk a little bit to give people an idea? How are people using you? Maybe, I don't know if you want to take which example, either hospital, education, or retail, and what they're doing with those
Absolutely.
data.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, on the health front, it's always about, on the hospital side, it's also about tracking costs, reducing costs, trying to optimize basically all their resources, whether, it's operating rooms, or whether it's just maintenance staff, or whether it's supplies, etc. So there's a lot of logistics around that, and a lot of procurement and so forth. So a lot of our dashboards are being used to track financial metrics and quantities and time spent in that area. For our marketing customers,
Let me ask a quick
yeah,
question on
go
that.
ahead.
So, like an example for that would be, okay, a hospital maybe has, I don't know, 200 suppliers of equipment and other things, and then basically
Yeah,
they'd connect whatever the ordering is for each of those things into a centralized dashboard so they can kind of see everything in
exactly.
one place and go, okay, here's our, because they may have even more than 100 supplier. I mean, they probably have people that do the linens and uniforms
Mhm.
and everything,
Exactly.
and it pipes in, and okay, we can see our cost, and they can kind of segment based on what the item is, etc. Is
Absolutely.
that
That's
accurate?
definitely one use case of it. Another use case could be simply, the occupancy of certain wings of the hospital in terms of rooms, etc. And the other one could be the use of an MRI machine, percentage utilization. So a lot of these different topics that, and there are some similarities across, and this is really why we moved from pharma to industry agnostic. Is when we started with pharma, it was very specific about pharma products, who do you sell to, what doctors, etc. Whether it's marketing, sales, or even medical information, right? They were tracking a lot of different things. But when we start nailing it down, we went to hospitality, and they were thinking about, okay, room occupancy, again, vendors, managing vendor costs, etc. Right? So you start seeing these patterns across, and this is what's kind of really interesting for us, because I don't think a lot of other companies have that capability today. um, we have this kind of global view of how all these metrics are being used in terms of the metadata, not the data itself. Obviously, we don't look at the data. That's everybody's customers is secured. But we do look at the metadata, because the system needs to know how to handle that metadata. And we start looking at and identifying patterns, which is very interesting for us to see that there are commonalities between all these industries. And ultimately, it all ends up being a bar chart or a pie chart or something like that, right? So it's that flow to us that is very interesting, and how we can help the customers get to that faster.
Yeah, Tom, I do want to talk about kind of the evolution of the product, because it's interesting, obviously it's from the first couple customers, it's different now. I'm curious what people, you know, love as far as like, okay, there's like now they have a nice dashboard and everything like that.
Yeah.
Before we get to that, I just want to point something out that's interesting, is niche, right? And it could be lost going on the website now because it's years later that you've been running this. But I had the founder of RX Bar on the podcast, and what was interesting is like every now people know what RX Bar and but in the beginning it was literally they were niched and had CrossFit people, and then it expanded from there. And I feel like it's the same with you. You didn't like try and solve everyone's problem. You were like, okay, we're
No.
pharmaceutical, and I can see how, okay, adjacent to that, the pharmaceutical is working with these healthcare hospitals, whatever, and adjacent to that, and then so I just wanna. That's my observation there, where it was
Absolutely.
critical. It sounds like a critical piece of growth is like you did niche early on.
You're absolutely right. I mean, we knew that we were not going to be able to, from a resource standpoint, we were bootstrapping this for the first few years. We were not going to be able to build, a global cloud platform, in a few months, right? This is not one of those cases that you can just get, 100 million in funding and kind of get all your developers and working full time for 3 years and come out with a great platform. It doesn't work like that. And so we started with these tagline, which is dashboards made easy. We focused these dashboards made easy, and you went along with our freemium model, and you went along with our ability to say connect, clean up your data, and visualize your data. That was it. That was a simple three-step, right? You have
I could see how that's sticky too if they're using the dashboard and you get them using it, and then at least free, and like, oh, you want to add these other things, then
right,
all of a sudden you're
exactly.
like, wait, I need to connect these two other things. Oh, you only I don't know how you transition, but I could see, oh, you
So
make one
yeah,
connection, but they have 17 connections. You're like, oh, now I got
right.
to pay for this thing.
Exactly, exactly. So we thought, okay, well, that's fine. You can connect this data, Excels, and things like that. And then we tied it in with, if there's a user that is paying for Pipedrive as opposed to paying for Salesforce, those are two different, bills that the customer will be paying for. And in both cases, you have a customer on one side that has Pipedrive and he wants to connect to ClicData. Well, we know we're not going to be able to charge him for that connector for Pipedrive the same way that we would be able to charge a Salesforce connector, right? So we start making differences in terms of the connectors, right? If you have already a data warehouse, most likely means that you already have, an IT infrastructure in place that hosts that data. So we start kind of pricing things appropriately for the customers that will take more advantage of it and that have more data typically, right? The data volume was a big one because we are hosting their data. We are centralizing their data, and that allows them to do amazing things with it. But it's huge cost, as you said. We are hosting it. We're responsible for it. We have to back it up. We have to secure it. We have all these, infrastructure concerns around it. So they should be paying more than somebody that has, less data in there, or at least less important data potentially. So, yeah, so that enables us. And then we start seeing things like people were building incredible things with the dashboard, where we thought the dashboard being a one-way medium, where we have data and we're now showing the end user their data in charts, in graphics, in tables. We start adding features, and again, freemium at the time, right? We were playing with it, we were testing it out. That actually allows them to input data, to actually store data via the dashboard, start typing into the dashboard so that it says and does stuff, and buttons, and now we start thinking, okay, it's a two-way medium now, and what people start doing with it was incredible. Like, well, we had a perfume company in France do a mobile application with our dashboards. So their sales rep would test different colors of lipsticks and things like that, and it was a cosmetics company, sorry, and their salespeople would just type in and on their screen, and immediately would give them like a chart with the color that should go for the lips. I don't know all the details, but the idea is that kind
Lipstick
of.
is not my expertise either.
Oh my gosh. This is crazy. They're building all kinds of different apps and stuff with this, and the flows of data. They would build data from jot forms to our data center. Then they would show on dashboards. They would input something and push it back to jot forms and create full data loops and things like that. And that just kind of ignited all these ideas of growth in terms of other areas.
Are there any other crazy use cases for this that you're like, when I started this company, I can't imagine someone would use it for this?
Well, I'm not sure if there's a lot. Well, there's a lot of crazy use cases, which we typically find out when something, once we see somebody. But we have a marine biologist in Alaska categorizing things. So it's not as much as, oh, it's an odd use of our platform, but the use cases for which they use it to us keep surprising us. And he's measuring different type of species of, I believe is fish or something like that. And the data that,
Yeah.
metadata that we actually see kind of it's quite funny. And we have another one in Calgary, and that was early on in the life cycle of big data, but and probably today I say this and people go, oh yeah, that's normal. But at the time, 10 years ago, they used to put these screens and these cameras on elevators, and they would push ads on the elevators, right? What I didn't know is that there was a camera monitoring, the height and doing some kind of a recognition to identify if if people were looking at the screen on the elevator, and that data, that they showcase their use case with us freely. I'm not sure if it's still on the website, but very interesting use case. I mean, we have a bit of everything. It's quite interesting, the variety from ice cream parlor stores in Florida all the way to cologne, perfume, and cosmetic companies. Yeah, quite a bit of use cases.
Interesting. So, looking at this, Telmo, I can see, so the evolution of some of the features. Obviously, if you're listening, we're looking at you could see data visualization, automation, connectors, data warehouse, processing, advanced analytics, streaming, and publication. It started really the core, these dashboards and connectors. And then what were some of the feedback you were getting from people, and then what you added after that?
Well, we only started with three of those. This is kind of like a pie chart, if you will. And we only started with three of those pies, which was the data viz and the connectors and the data warehouse, right? We didn't have much more at the beginning. We had a bit of processing. So the processing was the first one to kind of be transformed radically, where we thought, okay, people can, transform their data, clean their data is important, of course. There's no point in having bad data and then just having funny charts, right? So what we tried to do is spend a lot of time there. And that was probably one of the first places where we start adding a little bit of AI stuff to kind of do some of the stuff automatically. Some of the harder stuff as well. For example, convert addresses to latitude and longitude so people can visualize their customers on a map. Very important. These little things that really enhance the usability of the data and enhance the data, and then start looking at the data itself and propose things to the customer, such as, oh, I see that you've loaded this type of data. Would you like to augment it with additional data that I can get from the web? Things like that. And this is, again, to enrich, right? Weather data, currency exchange data, whatever can help them get the job faster. So that fourth buy was really where we kind of focused on the automation, of course, the ability not only to send, a new dashboard is ready, come and see it, but actually push it out, text messaging, etc., Slack and Teams notifications. So we tried to really not wait for the users to come to our platform to see how their KPIs are doing, or how their business is doing, but actually push the data right in front of them every morning. Monday morning, you get a little email with a little nice dashboard on the email plastered on saying, okay, this is how you're doing today, And I think that was something of the stuff that we started doing early on, because we start seeing, we got into other things like descriptive analytics, so that, we described the charts for the customers, and described their data to them. We started getting into pushing the data out. We felt that the customers maybe felt locked in by bringing the data into us, which we thought was a positive thing because, for example, some of these customers were using Facebook and LinkedIn. And at the beginning, it was like the Wild West, right? LinkedIn was holding your data, no problem, for months and years on end, and you could get to your data anytime. And little by little, they started reducing how much data you could actually siphon out using the APIs. So it used to be 4 years, 5 years. Now it's like 3 years, 2 years. I think it's down to 2 years or 18 months.
It's a 1 hour.
Exactly. Now you have to pay them money to get to your own data, right? So with our system, you could actually kind of bring the data in every day, a little bit at a time, and you'll build your history in ClicData. But even there, we thought, maybe they don't feel, comfortable with that. Maybe they want a way to push this out. So we built Data Stream, which is the ability to not only pull data in, But now with data stream, we can push data out and stream data out to other systems, not only dashboards, but actually the raw data or some sort of a modified data. And now these days we're very much into AI and Python and things like that. And again, some of these customers of ours have evolved into that naturally. They have data analysts on board and they want more. So the platform really evolved with the customers over the time.
Yeah, I'm looking, if you're looking at the video, I just, they have a really cool, if you go to the different connectors, this is where I'm at here, the connectors page, and you can kind of see all different connectors and each of them lead to the page. And I just think it's interesting to see how other people are using these things. And you have like a page that shows benefits of, with the LinkedIn connections and the metrics and sample dashboards. And then I also like, okay, if you used LinkedIn, then other people use the YouTube and Facebook and Instagram connectors. It's kind of like Amazon for connectors. Like, okay, if you like this, most people also bought this,
Right.
right?
Right. One cool thing that we're trying to do, and this is potentially one of the hardest thing is you saw there was some dashboards as well that you could build for LinkedIn, right?
Yeah.
You can click on them and they'll actually take you to the dashboard
Mm.
itself. And these are templates that our data analysts have over time kind of say, this would be a great dashboard, or this is a starting template that if a customer asks me for this, I would start here, show this to them, and then from here kind of tune it up to their likes and so forth, right? And these are actually live dashboards. So if you click on this, you'll actually see a live data, like it what we call a live link, which is basically a live dashboard with data behind it, where you can filter and click on it and things like that. So this
Is
is
this
what
your
this is
LinkedIn
our
or so?
platform.
This
This is
is
our
yours,
platform. Yeah,
right?
this is the platform at work. This is not a website. This is data. This is not our LinkedIn.
Oh, okay. I
I
didn't know if it
wish.
was connecting
Sorry.
to yours. Yeah.
I wish I had 39,000 followers. But no,
After
no,
this interview, you'll be there.
never know, right? But yeah, but this is the idea is that they build these and this is actually a great use case, right? Just the way you clicked on it and right now it's on your browser. Well, a lot of our customers actually embed these dashboards into their own portals or applications, right? Because you can do that with ClicData. You can build all the data analytics and then just embed the dashboards
Yeah.
into your application.
I would encourage anyone to go here and check it out. Clickdata.com/connectors. You'll get idea. I mean, just from like idea standpoint of what can you do with dashboards and what are they, they're obviously seeing a lot of best practices across, many, lots of data points. So you can check out kind of how they're building it. I'm curious, we're looking at now Facebook ads here and you can kind of see some of the sample dashboards. You get marketing agencies that use you that will present the data as well, right?
Now, absolutely. Marketing agency is actually one of our largest sectors. I think we may not be the most leading in terms just focused on marketing. I mean, there's a lot of marketing reporting analytics solutions out there, but we are definitely the most versatile. And there are times that these agencies are faced with multiple clients, and the workload in maintaining multiple clients' dashboards and analytics and keeping them updated on their campaigns on their effort is sometimes too much for them. So I think this is
I
where
mean,
we
people also want to show their clients results. It's like, okay, it's a way to do that, I imagine.
absolutely. And not only that, but it can be white labeled as well, right? So these marketing agencies, as with many other consulting companies, can actually tailor click data and rebrand the whole thing with their brand, right? So their customers will now feel that this is something specific, a value added that their marketing agency or their PR agency is doing for them. So we kind of like the white label quite a bit.
Yeah. What made you get away from the freemium? It seems like it was successful. What was the reason you ended up taking it away?
One of the biggest differences from other applications, where, if you take something that is just about dashboards like Power BI or something like that, is they give you the software and that's it, right? And you can, you could give it as a freemium and you load your Excels and you're happy with it. But it costs nothing for them. They built the code already. The code is built. It's just now, well, you're just downloading it. In our case, that's not true. The dashboards turn on our side, the databases and the data hosting, and we host on Microsoft Azure across the world in 7 different data centers, and that costs money to host their data, even if they're not doing much with it, even if they only consult the dashboard once a month, we still need to hold and back up that data for the whole month and refresh the data and so forth. So the cost was getting a little bit prohibitive, especially when you start reaching 45,000 accounts after a few years. We had to start doing something. So our price went from freemium to $25 a month. And then we created 3 plans, 25, 50, and 75. I forget exact the numbers. And then we just started adjusting. We figured that if this has really value added, and that was my next step really, is to differentiate just because it's free, everybody's using it, or is there really a business value to this and trying to measure that. So we started little by little, 25 for certain types of connectors, 50 for others, and try to gauge a little bit what the pricing point is as we added more features and obviously costs going up. It's been quite 17 years now since we first launched this, or a bit less, 15. But still, it was that the cost mainly. There was the support as well, right? There's a support cost to this. We offer an in-app chat on our platform. That means that anybody could just ask a question of one of our data analysts and say, why is my dashboard broken? How can I do this? And that's staff, right? So having staff for paying customers versus non-paying customers. So we started differentiating things, but
Yeah.
even support tickets is a tough thing, which I believe is a challenge for anybody that offers freemium, right?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think I've thought about it. Obviously, I don't know if most customers, consumers do, but I'll go to a site. Maybe it's an app. Maybe it costs, I don't know, 20 or $30 a month. And I'm thinking 2 support tickets from someone, like you've just lost that money. I mean, it's real cost. People answering
Exactly.
support. So I almost feel bad putting support in. I'm like, I don't want to like I want the business to thrive and make money. So but it's a real cost there, even for
Yeah.
not free, right? Even if it's $30 a month, right? And someone's
Yeah,
asking questions.
there's a threshold, and that's the interesting piece is what I've been seeing with some systems, and I can't come up with. I've seen a few recently. Is they just remove support for free accounts or for low paying accounts, and I'm not quite sure about that either, right? And I was thinking, well, I don't know. Like, I mean, that was the initial deal, and now we don't have it. I understand why, but it didn't feel right. So I just thought, okay, well, let's just find a pricing that kind of, yeah.
Yeah. Talk about the team. Initially, what was the evolution of the team? Because like it sounded like you had an amazing job and you left it to start ClicData.
Absolutely. Yeah. And at the time I was back in Canada after spending a lot of time in about I was doing work in about 40 different countries. I was traveling more than I could imagine.
Wow.
And I said, let's go back, settle down. And I was engaged. My wife is French. She's also later become a partner in the company and a co-founder in the early stages. And and we decided at the time, I was offered a position in London, and I said, "All right, I'll start in London, but we live in France. Since you're French, it's just around. We'll take the train across the tunnel, and I'll be there." And and that's where I decided to create ClicData. At the time, part of the reason is that I found some amazing software engineers. I had a kind of, fortunately, I met a lot of amazing people. I met a mad scientist out of Seattle. I met a great architecture software engineer out of Lille in France, a great data person out of Toronto. And I brought them all to France and I said, okay, let's build this. And at first they thought I was joking because I was basically just going, okay, what you're doing is kind of going against like the likes of MicroStrategy, IBM, business objects from SAP, Microsoft, of course, Oracle Business Intelligence, and you want to build a business intelligence platform? I said yes, but fully cloud. And so as I was able to convince him, this team, Nicola, he's been with me for 18 years now. Amazing architect. He's the CTO now. He built a lot of the code himself. Ellen, who's my wife and co-founder, she's also the one that said, you know what, we got to go freemium, we got to go organic, we got to go viral, we got to figure something out
She's the
because
marketing brain.
yeah, she all the way from the beginning, she put together the websites, and she was able to pinpoint a lot of things that work right off the bat, and so that was quite impressive. And when I met Shri here in France, in fact, and we worked together here 2 years before he moved to run the operations in the US and Canada. Shri's just a brilliant entrepreneur slash engineer. He's got that vision of services, data, and yet the vision of the platform. So, I mean, this is the core team, and of course, a few others. We're quite small as a company, but since we've been acquired, we're now actually one of a very large software player, global software player. So with TeamSystem acquiring ClicData, we're now over 5,000 people. So it's quite exciting to see where we're going to go from here.
We'll talk about the acquisition piece in a second, but I do want to talk about how do you have this a crazy idea, right? And you attract this, well, crazy maybe to some of the engineers. They could, probably work at a bunch of different places. How do you attract the top talent early on to come
Well,
join you in this endeavor?
interesting enough, I had two choices at the beginning, right? You have this kind of approach of saying, I'm going to go to the US or Canada, get a lot of investment and build, an entire engineer sales force and think big and all that. And I was not like that. I was saying, you know what? I don't want anybody with preconceived notions because anybody that's gonna I came from a very corporate enterprise mentality. Change is not good. Okay. In the pharma world, if Pfizer has not done something, nobody else will do anything, right? Like they always follow the leader, right? They want to see somebody else try it and fail or succeed, and then they'll follow, right? And I was afraid of that. I was talking to a lot of software developers and engineers that basically already had years of experience and they came with a very fixed thing in mind, right? And I didn't want that. So other than Nicola, everybody else that I hired after that was actually almost fresh out of school. I picked them. In some of them, I actually had them for internship. At the time, I was bootstrapping everything myself, so I was paying them internship level salaries. And at the end, I would offer them a full-time position. And at the beginning, I was teaching them, I was telling them how to do things, and then they kind of flipped around and start doing the other way, which is basically just doing it themselves and kind of evolving, but already with that vision and no preconceived notions of how to code, how to architecture, how to do this, right? Because we would fall very easily into the same old trap of BI, standard BI, and I did not want that. So that's, I believe, what excited them as well. It's that room to explore and the room to learn and that capacity to say, okay, this is something that nobody has done before. So that I think is what stuck. That was the early years. It was just purely engineer. For the first 5-6 years, it was really an engineering software development company, 100%. There was no marketing. The inbound we start getting after 4 or 5 years was almost unexpected. I was never expecting to do that. We built the whole thing, but we never had even thought of a formal launch platform until Elen came around and said, okay, we got to launch this big, right? But yeah, so that was the beginning. We never had any specific. I didn't go out and kind of try to pick this guy. I picked people that I knew that I could trust, but that had no preconceived and were very notions and that were very excited about this.
So in the beginning, you're like, okay, do I raise money or do I bootstrap? You choose bootstrap. And were there points along the journey where you're like, we're growing, I need to hire, or you just like, no, we're bootstrapping this off of the customers that we're getting?
We were not able to bootstrap enough, not at freemium levels and not at $25 subscription levels, right? So at some point in time, I did have to go look for outside investment. And luckily, I found a lot of angels that had, that were interested in participating. Didn't find any funds. It was a difficult story to pitch for North American investors. We're a French company. Which makes it a little bit hard, right? From the standpoint of proximity. For French investments or European investments, their investment concept is not the same as North America. It's a much more held back. Let's dip a little bit and see what what that does, and then we'll put more if needed, which is not the way to build a software, right? I need to build the whole thing. I can't just build, 20% of the software. I can only give you, 20% of a dashboard. I have to give you the full dashboard, right? So it was a difficult decision to go for funding. But yes, we ended up looking for funding at times where I could no longer bootstrap it based on my services and my consulting, both on cloud architecture or in pharma, sales and marketing IT. So I was trying to do that at the same time, while at the same time building the product. But it got to a point that, there was already 7, 8 people to feed, if you will. And at that point in time, I started looking for external investment, and that happened a few times throughout the life cycle of ClicData.
Yeah, I mean, because that's another job as well
Yes,
to
absolutely.
raise money and go that route. Talk about the acquisition piece. How did that come about?
Well, the acquisition piece came last year when we had an amazing offer from TeamSystem, who's an Italian software editor, huge company. They basically have a strong presence in Southern Europe, Italy, Spain, Turkey, and France, and they made an offer that we could not refuse in a sense. Um, but more interesting to us, which was I was not looking forward to another investment round because I did not feel that the levels of investment were going to be there. And I definitely wanted somebody that understood the software industry. And I thought that with their capacity, especially in the area of AI and data and what they're doing over there, I thought it was a perfect fit. Not only would I extend our development footprint quite quickly, I would start taking advantage of things that they've done for their own platforms as well very quickly. So it was very interesting for me from a product platform standpoint. On our side, we were able to give them a little bit more international exposure to data management. They were missing this. They were buying and licensing other BI tools, if you will, and now they can actually be the holders of their own destiny. So it was really a good marriage there for both of us. So very excited about that. How it happened through obviously people that we knew, etc., that approached us, and little by little we got to know them, and they put the offer, and it was great, and we felt that the whole team agreed that it was the next step.
What did you not expect from the acquisition process, or maybe you underestimated?
I think my ability to deal with it. I don't know if it's a positive thing or not, but I came into this and said, okay, if I do this, I'm no longer the founder, right? Sorry, I'm no longer the shareholder. I'm still a founder, obviously, and the deal is that I will remain on board as CEO, and that was not surprising, but that added a little bit of complexity in my thinking to say, is that what I really want?
Like,
Am
is
I
this
going to
like a
be able
loss of control, like
Am I going to be
potentially?
able to deal with it? Yeah, exactly. Am I going to be able to cope with it? Right? I mean, I've been kind of calling the shots for 17 years. Yes, we're going to do that. No, we're not going to do that. obviously with discussions and buy-in and so forth, but on a smaller company, there's a driving force, and the driving force and the decision cycle is absolutely ridiculous short hour in our company. So I was concerned. I was concerned because I've been there. I worked for those larger companies, so I know exactly what's expecting me. And what surprised me, to be frank, is how actually easy so far it has been. Now, it's only been a few months, but the mentality of TeamSystem and the culture of TeamSystem, being a software company, is so much closer than I ever thought. Whereas when I was working for pharma, the software development IT is not their core business, of course, right? So it was a different role, and that is true. I never worked for a large software company, and now I am, and I'm kind of seeing something. So I'm surprised in some aspects of how actually easy it is to kind of incorporate myself into that structure, and yet at the same time, I'm still a little bit fearful at times of the speed of which I will be able to make decisions and to kind of action certain items. Yeah.
Maybe it's too early to tell, Telmo, but for the role changing, how has your role changed at all from after acquisition?
So far, very little, but it's happening, right? There are two changes. The first one is obviously there are some things that you need to delegate to the parent company, and there are some things that you need to delegate to your own team. You are no longer really able to do, whereas before you tried to do everything for everybody. Now you have to teach them how to kind of stand on their own, because they will have their own interaction with other groups within a larger company, right? So they need to be able to perform and to operate within that. So now what I'm actually trying to do is, in a sense, train my teams to be more independent from me than ever. Whereas before they were already a degree of independence, but they knew they could always come to me. Now they know they need potentially to go to other teams within the larger group, and that is something that changes the dynamics of the internal relationship within the team, which, by the way, is always something interesting. And you were telling me earlier that one of the things that interests you the most is relationships. To me, seeing the growth of a company as year 2, 3, 4, all the way to 50, 100, 3,000, to me, it's such an interesting kind of experiment to see how those relationships change and how the interactions change. That I try to do the right thing and try to make sure that it's minimize the impact, negative impact at least, on the teams. So it's quite interesting for me to see that happening.
Yeah, first of all, Telmo, I want to thank you for sharing the story and the journey and your lessons along the way. It's been really valuable. I want to encourage people to check out clickdata.com. And for me, check out clickdata.com/connectors. I find it fascinating. And each one, like we use ActiveCampaign and some of these other tools, just to click on them and play around with some of the live dashboards and what you could actually do with ClicData with those specific tools. I think that's really cool. So I just want to be the first one to thank you. Everyone check out more episodes of the podcast, check out ClicData, and we'll see everyone next time. Thanks, Telmo.
Thank you very much.
What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I feel like 100 grand.